Hey friend, welcome back for another episode 5 of Voice for Kids. And I'm Karla Lee, and today we're going to talk about family and school involvement. Voice for Kids, the raw, real truth of co-parenting through your child's eyes. I'm your host, Karla Lee, and it's time to hear their voice. Welcome to the Voice for Kids podcast. Hey friend, welcome back. This is Voice for Kids and I'm Karla Lee, and today we are talking about family and school involvement. So let me just shed a little bit of light on how this was for me. So it wasn't easy when it came down to, dealing with my parents' separation and all the family dynamics, okay? So obviously when your parents separate, you suddenly are going between two places that you're living. I remember, for me, I just loved going to my grandparents' place. Like, I cannot put such a high importance on grandparents. They play, honestly, a pivotal role when it comes to separation, divorce for children. The best way I can explain it is it's a safe place. It's a place that I felt like I landed on pillows and cushions and soft clouds, if you want me to put it in some kind of a, image for you to imagine. It was just, I remember walking in the door and I'd see my grandparents and it was like home really, because that place hadn't changed. Okay, so for us, children of divorce, obviously the home environment changes, but when we go to our grandparents, that hasn't changed. I loved visiting my aunties and uncles and just having time with them. Some of them were so supportive for me and really helped me through such a difficult time. But what I want to really get through to you is that the family unit around children when they go through separation is so important. I cannot stress it enough. It's really important. I see sadly so many situations where the dynamics of the family unit outside of the initial family is changed, and some kids don't get to see their aunties and uncles, or they don't get to see their grandparents, and I'm telling you, it's wrong. They really do need that connection, even with their cousins, just to have that time with them. It's really important. So understanding that it's just not healthy to just pull everything. It's like taking the carpet underneath the child and just ripping it out and saying, you know what, now this has happened, you're not going to go here, you're not going to go there, sorry you won't be seeing this person as much anymore. Obviously, I've always said this, when it comes down to domestic violence and things like that, it's very different, okay? Dynamics can change with obviously visitation and rights and all that kind of thing. But overall, when it comes down to a separation that's come from, obviously what we'd say everyday situation, whether it can be, just not getting along, or there has been, a bit of verbal abuse for some length of time, and you just decide that this is over and I can't live with this person anymore, or it's infidelity, whatever it is. You can't just change the whole dynamics of like everything outside the family unit when it comes to their relatives. You just can't do that. I remember, for me, when I talk about the school stuff, it was just, it was so hard. I mentioned that in some other videos before, that it's just not easy to come from your parents are separating and then you walk into school and everything seems like it's okay. It's just not okay. But can we talk about it? Can we say anything? I didn't think I could say anything. I felt like it was, suck it up, move on, and just get on with your life. There was no freedom for me to share how I felt. And I think if there's one point I can really give you is it's really important to talk to your child's teacher. It's really important. You must inform them, because there'll be a dynamics that's happening with your child from the home environment that will carry into their classroom in some way. They're either going to be really introverted and suddenly become really quiet, suddenly become really down. The teacher will be thinking, oh, what's happening here? This child usually always talks a lot, now they're suddenly really quiet. There could be an attitude, there could be aggressiveness. I know for me, I had an attitude. I was ticked off, and I just didn't get along with the teachers half the time. I pretty much didn't want to do class. I didn't want to be there. I hated maths. I hated certain things. If I didn't want to be in the class, I'd just muck around and I'd talk and get in trouble and get kicked out. But I feel when I look back at a lot of my behaviour in school, especially primary school, when I first, my parents first separated when I was 9. I was in grade 3. I just didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be there in the class because I was just so in another world. My head was in another world, another space. And maybe I believe if my parents had spoken to my teacher and at least told them what was going on in some way, and the teacher had sat down and said, look, I can see you're struggling. I can see you're not coping. I can see you're finding things difficult. And, mum and dad have explained to me what's going on at home. And if you need to talk to me, I might have felt like I had an outlet in class. If I got emotional and went out, the teachers wouldn't be judging me for my anger, frustration. They'd be thinking, okay, this might be off the back of her parents' separation and what she's feeling with at the moment. So take that time to talk with the teacher, sit down with them, give them an understanding. Obviously, you don't have to give them all the information. You don't have to sit there and, just blab everything out and make it look dirty and ugly, for the other parent. It's not about sitting there and just talking bad about the other parent. It's just explaining that your child right now might be going through different emotions and you just want to make them aware. So that if they see anything or they want to contact you as a parent, that they will do that. I think it's just wise. It's wisdom. And for the teachers to have knowledge of what's going on, it also helps them not just typecast your child as, oh, this one here is so much trouble. You used to be a really good kid, now just so much trouble. And that's what can happen if you do not give the information. And it's also for high school. Don't just do it if they're in primary school. High school as well. High school can be worse. Like I remember, I acted out a lot in high school. And I know a lot of it was just due to what was going on in my home environment. And I just pretty much would, do whatever I wanted to do. Get in trouble, get out of class. My parents didn't know half the time what I was doing. But it was just a reflection of what was going on inside of me and all the turmoil that I felt. And it's important, as I said, that your child's teacher knows that they can probably work with a child and just having that connection, having that phone line, like I said before in another podcast, have that phone line open that the teacher knows they can call you and you can call the teacher. So the other thing I think is really important is you need to know who your children are hanging around. Okay, you need to know their circle. Because if you don't know their circle, when they're not getting what they need personally from you, if they're not getting that follow-up, they're not getting that communication, and someone else becomes that person for them and becomes available to be that person, it may not be the right person. You have no idea sometimes who your children are actually hanging around with. You find out sometimes months later, and it tends to be the person that's probably not the best influence for your child. Your children sometimes can connect to kids that are rebellious because they're in a rebellious attitude themselves, and then you wonder why your children are doing what they're doing. Sometimes, sadly, you find out later when they're actually doing something wrong, and then you look at the connection they've got, and then you look back and see how long they've known that person, and it goes back to just not long after you separated that they connected with this person, because maybe they connect to someone else that's kind of isolated, and they connect with that person who's just always by themselves, and they feel that way too. They connect with them. But then kids that isolate themselves and don't talk much and keep to themselves, sometimes there's a lot going on in that other child too. They could be connecting to another child that's going through their own problems. They get together, they talk about their stuff, and it just heightens things more. It's the influence around them that you need to be watching. You need positive influence around them. If I was to give you a little bit of advice from me as a parent now, and I've got 2 daughters, one's 20 and one's nearly 18. The best thing I did for my kids when they were little is I put them in a youth group. That's the best thing I did for my kids from a very young age, because I wanted my children to have an outlet outside of school. I didn't want them just to have school friends, because I remembered what it was like for me to have just school friends. and when I was going through stage of being bullied, and I was going through stages of just, a lot of, bitterness and, just, how girls are, right? I don't want to say the word, but you know how girls are. It was just like, I had dancing class, but I really wasn't fully connected with those girls on a level that I would say that I could hang out with them. I did dancing for years, but sometimes kids have a football, or they have netball, they have soccer, they have just different outlets, gymnastics or whatever they do. But for me, the reason I put them in a youth group is because I also knew what they were going to be taught was going to be healthy things for them. It wasn't just hanging out with kids. It was hanging out with kids with the same mindset, the same liking. They had positive teaching. They had great youth leaders with great influence that would talk into their lives. If kids were going through things, they would sit there and listen to them and help them through it. They'd talk on topics that kids find challenging in life. And as my kids went right through, say, primary and then high school with youth group, it was just a norm to them. They were already planted. So they would pretty much just glide with that in their life. And it's been one of the most amazing things. And now, they're leaders within their youth group. They get up and, they do great messages in our church and things like that, because just what the foundation that's been put there, that they now can give out what's been put in them. They can give out all these positive things for other kids. And, my kids do a lot of social media and helping people as well. So they've actually got this in them, built in them from a very young age. So it's a good thing to have an outlet for your kids, not just school. Give them another connection with other kids, so that when they are in a hard time with school friends, because it will come, they've actually got another outlet of kids that are positive in their life. I just think it's really important that you don't just lock them into, just school friends, because there will come times that they're going to need an outlet. And I remember, for me, of an afternoon going back to, what it's like with, the school environment and things like that. Kids sometimes, can step out of their curfews. They can step out of their boundaries of home. And I always had a curfew. No matter what, I had to be home at 5:30. It didn't matter where I went. I just usually get home. I'd leave a little note, I'm going here. And I just knew I had to be home. My dad was pretty strict on that. But I think it's good that you give your kids a curfew, because when they're going through these times, sometimes these kids can, after school, sometimes you won't know where they're going. You got to keep the boundaries there, keep the curfews there for them. It's really good that they have these set, and that as a parent in both homes you have these same curfews, have this agreement to have the same curfews, the same boundaries set up. It's really, really good that they know that you're working together. Look, this is the best way I say it to people, okay? So you got together in a business, you created a company, and in that company you decided to buy some assets, and those assets are your children. That's the best way I can say it. And though the company has now split, the company has fallen apart, it's gone, it's just, fallen apart, if you want to put it that way, you still have the assets because you still bought those assets. Those assets are there for life. And so if you can, as two, what's the best way to say it to you? Mature adults, say to yourselves, okay, so we're now not in a business, in a company anymore, but we still have these assets. Let's still stick to the same boundaries. Let's still stick to the same routines. Let's now stick to the same curfews. It helps them. It's still structure. It's structure. These kids need structure. The more you just change everything, okay, mum's living here now, dad's living here now. Now, mum says you can stay out till 6 o'clock, dad says 5 o'clock. Mum says, oh, I don't care if you're on your social media till 1 a.m. That's fine. This parent's like, no, by 9 o'clock you're off. Could you imagine the change, that what's going on in the kids, the turmoil that's happening, like I'm allowed to do this. So which parent do you think they're going to like the most? Of course, they're going to like the one that's giving, you can get home at 6 o'clock. You can be on till 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning on social media. You can do whatever you like. I don't care. It's all cool. Because sometimes some parents are trying to be the cool parent. You're not a cool parent doing that. It's detrimental to your child. The best thing you can do is stick to things together. Just get on the same page. Just make this is a contract that you have now put up. It's like a new contract. The company's folded. You still have the asset. Okay, let's do a new contract. What is the best thing we can do for our children? Let's give them the same boundaries, the same routines, the same curfews. It will be a positive thing for your child because that's good structure. So I just want you to think about it and think about the social media and think about all these things that kids can get on. Like social media right now it's rampant. It's everywhere, okay? It's for good things like this. Obviously, we create things like this, but it can also be very detrimental. If you do not know what your child is watching, you should know. I know with my kids from a young age, we had a parent lock on our phone for a curfew time. By a certain time, social media would disconnect. It would just disconnect. It would just go off. We can remember we did rules for our girls, like if they weren't listening and they weren't behaving, my husband would just unplug the Wi-Fi. And you'd hear from the bedrooms, oh my gosh, the Wi-Fi is not working. Oh my gosh, my computer's gone off. Funniest thing ever, but that was the quickest way he said he could get the kids to the kitchen to have a conversation, was like turn off the Wi-Fi. So sometimes you've just got to put down some boundaries. As I said, this could be in your contract as co-parents, and kids aren't listening and they're just got their face planted in that laptop or iPad or iPhone or anything. Just disconnect the Wi-Fi. Put a boundary down. Kids sometimes are on too much social media. And there are parent bans. There are things that you can have for your children to protect them so they're not seeing things that are inappropriate. Highly recommend you do that, because what the eyes see, the eyes take in, and it goes into the soul and it stays there. And then it becomes a memory. And that memory sometimes won't leave. That memory then can become a temptation, and that memory then can become an addiction, and then you are in big trouble to get rid of that. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So having these restrictions, having these boundaries around when they come out of school, because they can also, these days sadly, like obviously back in my days, I'd go home, throw my bike on the ground, my BMX bike, throw my bag inside, ring a friend on the phone. Obviously we had no iPhones, and then I'd have to get on my bike and ride to my friend's house. You don't have to do that anymore. You just ring your friend on the phone. You just go on, TikTok or Snapchat or WhatsApp or whatever program they want to go on, and just have a conversation. Video calls. Who are they calling? What are they videoing? You really need to be checking with your kids. And if you have not got that communication line set up with your kids, if you haven't got that communication line, you need to have it. You need to know what's going on there. Obviously, there needs to come a time where you have built trust with your kids that you can let them do things. But if you have not made the time to communicate with them, to be in their world, for them to know that you are there 100%, why would they let you in closer to see what they're doing? Because there's no trust built. You've got to remember, you've got to build the trust. You've got to build the trust with your kids. And it's so important that the communication lines are there, especially when they come home from school. They're at school, they've done that, they come home. What are they doing between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock would be my question, if you're not around. I remember when I would come home, as I said, my mum wasn't there anymore. My dad was at work. Between 3 and 5, I did whatever I want, 3 and 5:30. I can write a note, and I could have left a note saying, I've gone to so-and-so's house. Have I really gone to so-and-so's house? That's the question. That's the question you've got to ask yourself. Do you really know where your kids are? Do you really know what they're doing after school? So having things like, as I said, the family involved and the family in their lives, you might find that sometimes, especially if you've got younger kids, you've got the family around your kids of an afternoon. Sometimes if they're younger, or helping out, or an auntie or an uncle saying, hey, I'm going to come and pick up your daughter this afternoon and take her over so she can play with a cousin. Things like that, so that the kids are staying in a environment that's also connecting still with family. Because I know for me, I was doing so much outside of school, just on my own, just going off on my own. Obviously, the person I hung out actually a lot of the time was my cousin, the one I originally spoke about, who had been through separation too. He was my best friend. Simon, I love you. He was my best friend. We had the best time together, my cousin and I. We did a lot of things together. And he brought so much joy, like so much joy to my world. Him and his parents, my uncle, my auntie. But, I try not to get emotional and think about it because he was just a great cousin. And I really cherished my times with him. I really cherished, because it meant so much to me to have such a great cousin. The stories that we have of hanging out after school and family, it was just like, I can't even tell you, late at night, sleeping there, getting up during the night, it's a school night, mucking around in the lounge room, doing things in the dark, like creeping around the house until my uncle got up and, threw on the lights. What are you two doing? Get up, go to bed. Like, we just had so many fun times together. But this is what I'm talking about when I talk about just having those fun times for your child with their relatives. It's so important because some of my greatest memories are with relatives. So the other thing I want to talk about is counselling. So your child may need counselling. Don't assume that just you need counselling. Obviously, sorry, I'm just going to wipe away these tears. These are joyful tears, don't worry. These are joyful tears because, as I said, I had happy memories. But, counselling is a good idea for your child. I think, honestly, if I could go back to that 9-year-old little girl, I do believe I needed counselling. I believe if I'd had someone that I was seeing and talking to, it probably would have helped my journey a lot because I internalized everything. Felt like I had to cope with everything. I had to deal with it all myself. It didn't matter what was going on in my world. I was still stuck in a place of like, why me? So I really feel like it would have been a good thing for me. So ask your children, do they would like to talk to someone? I mean, I do say to people, with my books, and my books are here behind me, please don't go for, obviously, parents and teenagers, and it isn't my fault for children. I would like you to spend that time with your children talking with them, of course, because you can actually connect with your kids. But if you need that extra bit of guidance, a bit of counselling just puts a little bit of extra help. Just a bit of extra help, a little bit of extra guidance. And it helps you and your children just open the door for more conversation, because I really think the conversation, yes, needs to happen between you and your child, of course. But sometimes you might need a bit of extra guidance. And I do that also with Voice4Kids. You can go to voice4kids.com.au and you can make a time as a parent just to talk to me about your situation and how you're going with the kids, or if you want your child to talk to me, that is available through my website. But overall, just having that bit of guidance might help you even more. So I recommend, if you think that it's overwhelming for you, if you're getting counselling and you're still seeing that your children are struggling, just look into it. Look into that avenue, because it might actually just unlock a few things and help you, at the end of the day. But overall, the main thing I just want to say is communication is key. It's so important that your children have that connection with family. They have that connection with their grandparents, their aunties and uncles. I see so many grandparents say to me online, "Oh my goodness, my son got divorced, and now his wife won't let me see the kids." It's just devastating for these grandparents. These grandparents that obviously got caught up in this parental alienation, and they're the grandparent. They've got nothing to do with the marriage. It's all happened, and one parent won't let them, see the grandchildren anymore. It's just wrong on every level. On every level, you might feel that you're punishing the other parent, but you're not. You're punishing also the child. The child's growth, the things that the grandparents will bring into their lives, aunties and uncles, it's huge. I can remember so many happy memories with my grandparents, and my parents were separated. But as I said, that joy was such a big thing in my life. So the communication with the school, the communication with your relatives, as I said, the family members, please understand, they're so important. Do not just think for a minute that it's just, they'll be okay. Yeah, they'll get over that, because you might not want to connect with them anymore. Okay, especially if it's your ex's family, you might say, oh, I don't, I'm separated now. I don't want a part of that. That doesn't mean you just take your children out of that. You don't do that. It's so important. So anyway, that is the end of this podcast. I really hope that this was something that helped you understand, what was happening in my life and the difficultness that I had, and just understanding that it's not an easy road for your children. It's not an easy road. It's not an easy road for your kids when parents go through separation and all of a sudden, they're going to school and they're going through, all this stuff that's happening in class, and you're wondering why they're mucking around. There's reasons why. And your family, the connections outside, they are so important. Okay, so we are at the end. The next one we have is communicating to your child your feelings. That bond of where you open up might also open up their feelings. There's a trust that can come from that. And so it's really important that they understand that, yes, you're going through things, but you're willing to share your emotions, which then opens the door for them to share their emotions and feelings as well. So stay connected for that. I thank you so much, friend, for joining me on this podcast. Stay tuned for the next one. This is Karla Lee from Voice4Kids. See you soon.